Losing weight feels overwhelming. There's so much conflicting advice out there. Should you do intermittent fasting? Should you do keto? How often should you be lifting and doing cardio or just steps? And it really starts to feel like, what exactly should you listen to in order to have success? But after 10 years of training clients, I've seen one huge reason why people struggle to lose 50 to 100 pounds and actually keep it off. It's not about finding the perfect workout or the perfect diet. The real reason is actually way simpler. It's just most people ignore it. So I'm gonna tell you a story about one of my clients that used these principles, actually, that I'm about to tell you about to, have a massive amount of success. They started off about 320 pounds, I think a little bit less. I think it was closer to like 317. And they were definitely the type of person that was all or nothing. If something didn't go right, the rest of it would go wrong as well. They had very poor sleeping habits. They were in pain daily. It was hard for them to do things, of everyday life that would actually get them some good calorie burn. So it was a real struggle at first. Their breaking point right before they came to me was going to Europe on a family trip, and they couldn't keep up with their family. They literally had to let their family leave while they sat down because they couldn't walk the streets and keep up with other people. For them, we started off with just meal prep, using whole food sources as the main nutrition that they were getting, and then started increasing their steps. That was the beginning of the system, and it wasn't a whole lot of detailed stuff past that. And that's what got them to their first big milestone. For them, the biggest challenge was the pain that happened from the steps. So as they were taking, because they were very heavy, and so whether it was their knees or their feet or just achiness, injuries or nagging overuse injuries from doing the steps and following the program is what was really difficult at first. Anytime they would miss their steps, they would feel guilty, and I could see it in their food log and everything. But slowly they started to learn to get over those small things that they just meant nothing. And once they were able to move past that a lot quicker, that's when things really started to fall into place. You didn't have to get your steps every single day. You could just get more steps, and so that was what we were working on. And then as they lost weight, it was easier to get those steps. They were less achy. Their skin rubbed together a little bit less, and so those nagging overuse injuries started to slow down. I remember the text. I was with a different client at the time, in-person training, back whenever I did that more often. And I remember the text of them needing to get new pants. Their pants literally didn't fit anymore. And that was whenever it really clicked for them that this is working. I follow this system, I trust the system, and this is going to work for me. And I think that's a really empowering moment. Usually a person has a breaking point where they're like, okay, I need to make a change. And sometimes several of those, and you might have been there. And then they have this point where it clicks that, oh, I can do this. I am in control of this because I'm following the system that I'm about to tell you about. Now, I don't see this client anymore, but I stay in touch with them. And they go on regular trips. They've lost, I wouldn't say all the weight, but a lot of the weight, probably down to about 180 or so. And so, over 100 pounds, what is it, 140 pounds, and it has been a process over a couple of years. So the first fundamental that is extra important is the calorie deficit. And I know that you've heard that before, but it is literally the backbone of a person being able to lose weight. There is no such thing as starvation mode where a person somehow miraculously holds on to calories or holds on to body fat even though the calories aren't there to support it. It is a calorie deficit. If you're not losing weight, you're not in a calorie deficit. Now there are, more things to that. It is possible for a person to eat more and lose more if that increases their movement a whole lot, but that is very unlikely. What's more likely to be happening is that a person isn't keeping track of their food in an accurate way, or they're moving a lot less than they think or whatever. But bottom line, we have got to be in a calorie deficit. So the best way of pursuing that calorie deficit, in my opinion, is with food logging, at least for a while, to keep track of your calories and keep track of what is actually entering into the body. If you're able to do that, things like peanut butter and stuff like that aren't going to give you 500 accidental calories. You're going to eat the normal serving of peanut butter, like 190 calories, whatever it is, for 2 tablespoons. It will shock you and it will kind of depress you how little peanut butter, how little oil, how little avocado you need to get a huge amount of calories. And that is the reason that a calorie deficit and focusing on this point is so important. If we're accidentally getting too many calories through our diet, this should empower you. I don't want this to feel like, oh, well, he's telling me I might be wrong on my food tracking, or I have to track food in order to have success. I want it to empower you because at least there's something that you can do about it. Instead of, well, I'm just a victim to my circumstances and there's nothing I can do because apparently I'm gaining weight just magically. No, there is no magic reason you can do this. You just got to keep track of your food. And I have other videos on how to do that a little more detailed, but I'll give you a couple pointers right here. Get a food scale. In fact, I wonder if I could pull it out. Yeah, there it is. Get a food scale. This one's all dirty, I'm sorry, but This is the one, if you just look up on Amazon and see this, what is it? E-Tech City. Can you see that? Oh, it's probably trying to focus on my face. E-Tech City. It's a really good food scale. The thing hasn't failed me yet. And I like how it measures in smaller increments. But get a food scale, measure out the meat you're consuming. Starting with single ingredient foods is certainly a lot easier because you can just measure out chicken breast. You can measure out, whatever cut of steak that you have. You can measure out the rice, things like that. But my cookbook, which is free, link in the description, link in the pinned comment, has those serving sizes for you. It's pretty simple recipes, and it's things like protein mac and cheese and Mexican lasagna. It is delicious. And then you just follow the recipe and pull out 500 grams of protein mac and cheese or whatever. You don't have to wonder how many is a serving. So it kind of takes care of that for you. But if you can understand exactly what's coming into your body, that is really going to help with your calorie deficit. By far the easiest way of getting into a calorie deficit is going to be through your diet. It's not going to be through, exercising more. Now, I'm a big believer in exercising more, getting cardio, and getting lots of steps. I think it makes it much easier to be in a calorie deficit, but the thing that really puts you in that calorie deficit is making smarter choices in the kitchen. The next thing that I think is so important, I mentioned this in the story that I had about my client, is the all or nothing mindset. That is something that a lot of people, I've heard from a lot of trainers, I've asked on my YouTube channel and everything, that is something that a lot of people have struggled with, is this all or nothing mindset. That if we mess up, or if we eat something that we think is a mess up, that the rest has to follow. And I get it, it's because your motivation is completely sapped. Why not just enjoy this? Or really, I think it's more of a guilt thing that happens, because I've experienced this myself as well. Where the guilt kind of takes over and it's hard to snap out of that. Let's take an example. If you eat a cheeseburger, a double bacon cheeseburger, and you have a Diet Coke with that, a lot of people will make fun of that. But that is the opposite of all or nothing. That is, something isn't so good, something is at least a better choice. So with a regular Coke that you would get from the restaurant or whatever, you'd be looking at especially if it's like a fast food place, you'd be looking at probably 350 calories. That is the difference. Two things like that throughout the day is the difference between a person losing weight and not losing weight. That's a pound of weight loss a week versus a little bit more than a pound a week versus no weight loss at all. So it could really just be that thing, by you having that double bacon cheeseburger but still working out, that could be all the difference. And it's about trusting the process and focusing on that day, that next action. Now, can we get better at avoiding, whatever led to that double bacon cheeseburger? Yes, of course. You could be more prepared. You could, we're going to talk about a lot of these things that are going to help you to overcome those temptations with that as well. But we want to make sure that when we do have a time where we're going out with family or whatever, it's not just the whole day's out, because that day turns into a week, and the rest of the story, it turns into a month and turns into years. And so we want to avoid that all or nothing mentality through the rest of your plan being in a good position to actually serve you best. So the next fundamental is about enjoying your food and cooking recipes. This is my cookbook. Actually, here, there we go. This is my cookbook. These are delicious recipes. There's more recipes there than I thought. That's good. I need to keep filling this thing out because I have a lot more. But those are high protein, delicious recipes that are going to make it a lot more sustainable for you to actually stick to your diet because you enjoy the food. They're high volume. They're going to keep you full. That is what is so key in a person's fat loss diet. If you're following, paleo and you hate it, and you're like, I can only eat so many, I don't even know if almonds or paleo, whatever, fill in the blank, Mediterranean diet. If you're almonds and fish and vegetables, that's great. That's a super healthy diet. But if you hate it, you're not much of a fish person, and you hate these, you just want some freaking peanut butter back in your life, then that's not going to work. You got to have recipes. And, there's protein ice creams. There's chocolate mousse, made out of eggs. It's weird stuff. Like, it's delicious though. Now the chocolate mousse isn't in my cookbook. I'm probably about to add it. But anyways, that's off on a different side tangent. You got to enjoy your recipes and learn how to get in the kitchen and make them. The recipes in my cookbook are relatively easy. I'm not a chef. I just put together ingredients and, out comes these good recipes. But it's a skill. So I don't want you to be discouraged right away if you start cooking and you are, like, man, this is just taking forever. I only got one meal done. That's okay. You are moving in the right direction. And that kind of goes back to that all or nothing mentality. Just, it's okay to progress in one little way. Next is going to be being active outside of the gym. And obviously I have a gym here with rings and a Rogue Echo bike and stuff. And you can't really see that super well here. But so exercise is important, but being active outside of the gym is arguably much, much more important. Now, I was gonna film this outside while walking, but it is very windy and kind of cold out, but more windy. I didn't want it to affect the mic. But getting your steps up, that is so key. And whenever I was telling you about my client that has now found a lot of success, that was their big thing, was increasing their steps, was increasing their movement outside of the gym. Because as important as the gym was, it was such a small percentage of the calories they actually burned. If you think of a pie chart, your exercise is only going to be like a sliver of that pie for the calories you burn. Now, exercise is important for different reasons, keeping muscle, basal metabolic rate, which is like half of the pie. But the NEAT, your non-exercise activity thermogenesis, is like 25% of that pie. And so increasing that is by far the lowest hanging fruit, in my opinion. That doesn't cause a person to, dread their workouts or to suffer or anything like that. Like, you could do high intensity cardio and probably burn more, but it would take, an hour of high intensity cardio a day, as opposed to just increasing your steps by 2,000 or 3,000 and slowly increasing that as you go. So what I have my clients do is increase their steps by like 1,000 every week until we find a place that isn't really sustainable. Like, it's kind of hard to reach, and then we kind of back off a little bit until we find that sweet spot where they're able to, whether they have a desk job, some people have active jobs and they need a lot more steps. But, find your spot, increase your steps by like 1,000, 2,000 every once in a while. And then you're going to find like, okay, so 10,000 is about my max, or 12,000 is about my max, or 8,000 or whatever. And then you work the rest of it through the diet and everything like that. I also wanted to mention real quick, I know this isn't movement outside of the gym, but this is calories outside of the gym. By weightlifting or resistance training, and I use these rings a lot, so it doesn't literally have to be weightlifting. These are just Olympic rings that I have hung up from a pull-up bar, but you can hang them from the ceiling and everything, which I'm actually going to do in my garage. But by resistance training, you're going to keep muscle, and that muscle is going to be burning calories throughout the day. So it's kind of like movement or calorie burn outside of the gym, but it happens because you're inside the gym building muscle. So I just wanted to mention that. The next principle is that fat loss is not linear. Let me pull up a few graphs from my clients. I'm going to literally pull up my most recent 4 graphs and hope they don't make me, this one's a good example, hope they don't make me a liar, but this one is. You see how up and down that is? Now, are they losing weight in a linear fashion overall? Yes, the pattern is linear, but it is way up and down. Look at that huge dip right there, and then right back up. And there's some spikes, like right there, where if a person was defeated by that, they would have given up. But look where they're at, And I can keep going. Like, each one of these graphs, these are my clients' weight loss graphs. Sure, they're down. Look at this one. We had to go backwards a little bit. You see, but look at where they're at now. So really getting this into your mind now, that this is not linear. I'm going to go backwards. That's part of going forward. That's going to help you so much. Another big thing is getting enough sleep. And I have a list here of like common side effects in regards to not getting enough sleep or not getting quality sleep that leads to, or the side effects when it comes to fitness. So you have more cravings, like not just stronger cravings, but more cravings. And those cravings are stronger, if you count that as number 2, which means you make worse decisions. You might be more susceptible to eating that thing that you might have been able to say no to because of your sleep. Your movement naturally goes down, so you're burning less and you're taking in more. And then you're more moody and grumpy, and so you're less likely to be motivated to stick to it and get back on it. So by improving how we improve our sleep, that's a big question that I see in videos, in the weight loss niche that are about, hey, make sure to improve your sleep. And, people know that, but how do you actually do it? Now, you've heard all these, but it's about discipline, and I'm going to get there in a second. But no blue light before bed, red light blocking glasses, or get off your screens, reduce screen time, things like that. I think a big one is consistent wake and sleep times. Teach your body it's time to get tired at 9. Be disciplined and go to bed at 9. Even if you just lay there, teach your body that it is time to go to bed at 9. And then wake up at 6 or whenever you wake up consistently so that you're tired. Again, ideally not taking naps. If you're really low on sleep that day or whatever, whatever. But ideally, most of the time, not taking naps. It's too easy to stay up at night and just watch Netflix or scroll through your phone. I'm sure you've been there. So make the decision. Be disciplined that I'm going to shut this off at 9 and I'm going to lay in bed or whatever. Start getting ready at 9 and then you get in bed at 9:30 or 10. Whatever time is good for you, just make it consistent, be disciplined, and really work at getting that done. Reducing your liquids before bed is also a really good idea. And like de-stressing, taking your mind off of things that, especially social media, it can just be so tense. So maybe getting off of social media before bed is something that's really going to help you as well. And then to go hand in hand with this, the last fundamental is going to be managing your stress. With self-sabotage being all too, I'm sure you might be able to relate to that almost feels like you're purposely messing yourself up. It's all too prevalent, and I think that has a lot to do with sleep and stress. So even though this could kind of go into one point, this is going to be the 7th fundamental, which is managing your stress. And that's things like, actually I have I'm going to be talking about this more. This is just a rope. It's just a cheap rope that I got off of Amazon. But it's rope flow. It's what I've been doing lately. If you look it up on YouTube, you'll see like it's a form of very low impact exercise, which is why I'm going to be talking about this more. But I need to practice it a little bit because, it is kind of difficult. It's not as easy as like just jump rope. It's not difficult, I would say, but it's a really low impact way of getting a little bit of movement. But it's almost like your brain like enjoys the rhythm of it, that I think it's a great way of de-stressing. If you're a person of faith, like myself, reading your Bible and spending time in prayer and actually being disciplined on that is something that really helps me. But anything to get yourself away from the tension of social media, I think is really valuable. So for me, I'm not really on social media anymore outside of posting and helping people with their fitness. But I don't really engage on a personal level too much with social media. And the process of getting healthier is going to help you manage stress. I promise. You're just gonna have to trust me on that because it might not feel like it makes much sense. But you feeling better in your own skin is a massive improvement in your stress. I have been there, so I know, I can tell you with confidence that I bet 50% of your stress level might be this deep-rooted, for me it was self-hatred, so maybe I won't speak into your situation because I guess I don't actually know, but I feel like I relate to people very much whenever it comes to the hatred that I had for myself when I was big and felt uncomfortable. Everywhere I would go, I felt uncomfortable and I felt laughed at. Clothes shopping was miserable, and all these things add to that stress. And by getting healthier, there's numerous study after study that shows that getting sunlight, getting enough water, and eating healthy and exercising is just like the formula for reduced anxiety and depression. So manage your stress by getting healthier, managing your sleep, and getting something that's like meditative and process. It could be rope flow, it could be the Bible, it could be meditation, it could be whatever. Get something where you can connect with the moment instead of your brain racing with everything you have to do throughout the day. I promise if you focus on these 7 fundamentals, and I'm gonna reread them real quick. So calorie deficit, the all or nothing mentality, like ditching that, enjoying your food and your recipes, being active outside of the gym, that's basically just in the form of steps, knowing that fat loss isn't linear, setting yourself up with a mind frame of this is gonna be an up and down process, but it's gonna be overall down, getting enough sleep, and managing stress. If you follow those, you will lose weight. Guaranteed, there's no magic diet needed, but that's not enough. Obviously, we know this stuff. If people know this, why is there still a struggle? Why do people know but still fail? Knowing isn't the problem, it's actually doing it. And so I'm gonna transition this into the action steps and how we think and what we do in order to actually put these things into practice. There's hidden traps that I think people that they trip over, and so we're gonna address those now. All right, so here's why most people struggle. This is the hard truth. Losing weight, I'm sorry to say, isn't the hard part, even if you struggle with that. I bet you've lost weight before. Maybe you didn't lose all of it, but what got in your way? It was keeping it off, right? So let's say you lost 15 pounds. If you're able to keep that 15 pounds off, even if you picked it back up in a year, you would eventually reach your goal. Sure, we can do it a lot faster, but it's keeping it off. That is the difficult part. And so we have to know, how can we transition out of a fat loss diet? There's all kinds of things that need to be implemented besides these 7 fundamentals, or it's really how to apply these 7 fundamentals. So we're gonna talk about that now. Okay, so I think a very underrated strategy for keeping the weight off is diet breaks and transitions. They could be really the same thing. So it's like a transition diet. So if you ever reach a plateau, let's say you've lost 30 pounds and you're like, man, I'm just stuck. I think, and if you find yourself thinking about food a lot, maybe sleeping worse, maybe you're not motivated to go to the gym, don't worry, you're not gonna slide backwards. Go into a transition diet. I think it is so powerful. It's not that we're either losing or gaining. It is possible to lose and then maintain, and then lose and then maintain. It won't take you long if you lose 30 pounds at a time or 20 pounds at a time to actually reach your goal, you know? And so going into a transition diet, what does that look like? What I would do, let's say you were at 2,000 calories and now you've had to slowly reduce those calories and increase your movement up to, you know, like let's say your calories are down to 1,800, something like that. Well, then I would add in 100 calories up to 1,900. You're still probably you might even start like sparking a little bit of weight loss, but you got to see the transition diet through. Then I would increase 2,000, maybe 2,100, 2,200, and eventually you'll get to a point where you're like, okay, I am now flat, and maybe even the scale went up a little bit, but it's like up and down, hard to tell. Don't worry about that. Don't freak out. Think to yourself, even if I gain back 3 pounds, who cares? I'm 27 pounds down or whatever, because you're going to go back into a diet, okay? Don't worry. Once you find that your weight is flat, maybe if it's even gone up a little bit, but now it's flat again, keep up your movement and enjoy your new life just for a little bit, just for like 4 weeks, maybe 2 weeks. Just enjoy your life and get used, okay, yeah, I can be here. This is where I could be. You're not gonna be there forever, but just be okay with, I'm gonna be here forever. I can be here forever if I wanted to be. And then you transition back into that weight loss diet by subtracting 100 calories until you see that you are losing about a pound a week again, or you know, you could go a little bit faster if you wanted to, depending on how heavy you are. One thing I think it's important to, and this is again kind of the hard truth, I think it's important to realize this is forever. This is not, you know, you're doing this until you lose the weight and then you're going back. Because if you go back to eating, you know, triple double cheeseburgers, can't even say that, then you are, you're gonna go back to your weight. So this is a new lifestyle where you are gonna be enjoying the recipes from my cookbook. You're gonna be, you know, knowing that you eat ice cream, but it's just gonna be a lot less. You make your own ice creams, things like that. You know, you're active and you're doing 8,000 steps a day. You're never gonna go back to doing 3,000 steps a day. Whatever, you know, your situation is, whatever you grew into, that is the new you. And the reward of fitness is the motivation. It is the reward. And even if it doesn't feel like that right now, knowing the truth is really gonna help. You are not gonna go back. A massive thing that I think would help a person, not that I think would, I don't know why I phrase it like that. The key to keeping your weight off is whenever you lose weight, even if like you transition for a while in a transition diet or a maintenance diet, but let's pretend you reached your end goal. Let's say you lost 100 pounds or whatever and you reach your end goal. The transition has got to be to building muscle and increasing performance. Those two things are the new goals. It's not that your goals stop. Oh, I've reached my fat loss. That's it. My goals are done. It is that you are going to work on increasing your lifts in the gym, increasing your ability to do those rings over there. There we go. Wait, over there. There they are. I can't barely see them on the screen. Doing the rings over there. And getting better at handstand push-ups and things like that because you've lost all the weight. Now you have a new thing to pursue. It could be a sport. It could be that you want to get as good as you can at basketball. And it could just be local pickup. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. But you want to get as good as you can. So you're going to, you know, be running drills and stuff to do that. You're going to stay active. That's what is going to be key for you to keep it off is you have a new goal. You have a new thing to pursue. And you'll never look back. Another skill to build up to keep your weight off forever is going to be to get back on the horse as fast as possible. That is something that people who successfully lose weight and keep it off, they've gotten good at, is, you know, not sulking in a mistake or something like that. And I wouldn't even call it a mistake. It's just not a big deal. They learn that, oh, having a day or two of bad eating isn't a big deal. So number one, I would focus on the next day. And I know it sounds cliche, but seriously, just focus on having one good day. It's crazy how fast that water weight drops off and how fast your motivation comes back when you focus on that one day. Number two, I would get yourself a trainer. It doesn't have to be me, but an online trainer or a local trainer, someone that can hold you accountable, someone that can speak into your situation and motivate you that this is something you can do. I promise you can do this. And the last part of that, of getting back on the horse after a fall, is work out no matter what. Like I said a little bit ago, it's a lifestyle and it really is something that you are going to be doing forever. And so get back on the horse. No matter what you do, work out. Even if that is a 5-minute workout, a 10-minute workout, whatever. Get back to exercise. That is going to help you so much mentally. It's going to help you break free from that guilt cycle that keeps you trapped. And I think that's the key. That's why exercise is so important. Even though it's such a small sliver of the pie, I think it is one of the most important things for a person's success because they're able to kind of snap out of that negativity because they're pursuing something in the gym or, you know, with rings or whatever on a run. It doesn't matter. They're pursuing something else other than just the number on the scale. So the number one reason people fail, like ultimately fail, is inconsistency. Most people don't stick to the plan long enough to actually see results. And that's something that's so key. And I know that, being consistent is something that's so kind of boring to talk about, over talked about. And I know you already know that, but it takes months to lose 50 to 100 pounds, not weeks. For some people, it takes years. And that's just because they're typically going up and down and everything. And they were more consistent than inconsistent. But if a person's consistent the whole time, a year is going to be just like life-changing for you. It's not always going to be exciting. Sometimes you're going to feel like you don't feel like doing it that day. And sometimes that's okay. But doing it anyway, knowing that, most days doing it anyway, knowing that I have a bigger goal, I have a bigger reason than just losing weight, that I can be free of this, that is what's really going to motivate you to go a little bit further. I think another thing that's really cool to think of is that you have probably accidentally taught yourself that you're going to fail. I'm going to slip up somewhere and I'm going to fail. But what if you prove yourself wrong once and then twice and then 3 times? And then it starts to become a thing where you're like, I know I can do hard things. I know I can overcome this. So maybe just committing to, okay, I'm going to do this no matter what for 3 months, no matter how hard it is. And I'm going to fail along the way. I'm going to fall, I should say, along the way. But I'm going to get back up no matter what. And then at the end of 3 months, if I don't feel like continuing, I'm not going to continue. I would really try to focus on changing one thing at a time. So start with your steps, maybe. And go back to those fundamentals. What is your weakest fundamental? Start with that. Are you not moving a whole lot? Start moving more. Are you not keeping track of your calories? Just start doing that. Don't do anything else. Start weightlifting. Now, if you do join my program, we're going to be working on all of it right away because I don't want to waste your money and your time. But especially if you're doing this on your own, I would encourage you to add just one thing at a time. It'll take a little bit longer, but it won't be overwhelming and you won't fail because you're adding one thing to your plate at a time and you'll never feel overloaded. I think the mindset shift that you need is you don't need the perfect plan, you need a sustainable one. You don't need to be perfect every single day or nearly every single day. 5 days a week of doing a really good job, not even perfection, is all you need. Now, I'm not saying Monday through Friday, be perfect and then Saturday, Sunday fall off. That's a common thing. But I'm saying, 80% of your diet, 80% of the calories coming in is something that you can track, something that's whole food, something that's from my recipe book. And then 20% of your diet is maybe not so great, but you're not having a huge abundance of that food, So maybe you have some pizza every single week. Maybe you have some ice cream every single week. It's just not that much. Starting to control your portions. And then same thing with the steps. Let's say 5 days of the week you're on your steps and 2 days of the week you're walking a little bit less because you need a little bit of rest. That's totally fine. And then being on your steps, I want to make sure to clarify what that means. That could mean for you 5,000 steps. If you're not used to that, then, I'm not saying that you have to get 10,000 steps on 5 days of the week and then recover because it's so hard in your body. I'm saying wherever you're at, reach that. Real quick, I wanted to talk about special events. I have a list on my phone. This is how I train my clients to navigate around special events, Thanksgiving or Super Bowl or whatever. So I use a plate method. You can have one plate at this event. Half of the plate being proteins, even if it's not super healthy protein. It could be like, meatballs and sausages or whatever. I don't know, whatever. It doesn't have to be healthy, but half the plate is protein. If the healthier the protein, the better. If you can have some chicken or something, that'd be cool. But half the plate could be hot dogs and burgers, like just something that is mainly protein. And then the other half of the plate a quarter of the plate being vegetables of some sort, vegetable or, it could even be a potato or something, just something to control the carbs that are coming in. And then the other little bit is going to be, whatever you want. The last fourth of the plate is going to be whatever you want as long as you don't pile it super high. So that is the plate method that I use. Re-listen to that if that felt a little fast. But letting it just be one meal. That is the other thing, is that you can have this plate and then you're done. You can have 2 drinks, let's say, after it, pick something, and then you move on. And that's it. The next day is a totally normal day. I also highly encourage you to never make up for it. I know it can feel tempting to say, I'm just not going to eat until that meal, or I'm going to skip all my food the next day, or I'm going to work out 3 times tomorrow, or do an extra hour of cardio. Don't make up for it. Just move on. It's not a big deal, and then you won't crash and burn. And then the last thing is I really like to tell my clients, and I'm telling you this works, use it as fuel. Build some muscle. You'll go into the gym and you're going to be like, oh my gosh, I feel great. I'm lifting more than ever. Build some muscle. Your body has been in this calorie deficit, in this situation, and you're kind of depleted. Let's say you have one meal that isn't so bad, but let's say it's a horrible meal, like you just way overate. A lot of that is going to go to replenishing those stores. Some of it's going to go to building muscle, and then maybe some of it to body fat. And then you can just lose that quarter pound of body fat, half pound of body fat, or at worst, 1 pound of body fat. Your worst mess up is going to add 1 pound of body fat. Now, the weight on the scale might say that you gained 4 or 5 pounds. That is water, muscle glycogen, combined with some body fat, combined with some muscle. So now it's gonna be even easier for you to lose that pound of body fat, and that's the worst case scenario, by the way. It's gonna be even easier for you to lose that. And then you can just go back right on where you were going. You remember those graphs I showed you earlier? Go look at those earlier. Sometimes they went up by 4 or 5 pounds, but look where they're at now because they continued. If you're trying to lose 50 to 100 pounds, that's really what I specialize in. You have two things that you could do. You could keep searching for quick fixes and stay stuck. You could keep searching for, like ways of, okay, maybe I try this, maybe I try this. Or you can commit to mastering these fundamentals. Go watch those fundamentals again. If you're still at this point in the video, congratulations, you're serious about this. Go watch those fundamentals again. And no matter how boring it feels, commit to completing those. Give me 3 months of completing those and see where you're at. I bet you're gonna be pretty impressed. The people who lose weight and keep it off, they stay focused and they stay consistent, not perfect. If you follow this, I promise you're gonna lose the weight and you're gonna keep it off forever. If you wanna see the exact system that I run my clients through with, I call it my dial system, you can look at that right here. That is gonna walk you through exactly how I call it dialing in. Dial in all the facets that I use with my clients.